People don't believe in God because he's real. They believe because it's comforting. Hi, my name's Timmy Gibson, former fundamental, evangelical, Bible-thumping, tongue-talking, Holy Ghost rolling pastor. Spent 30 years as a pastor and 48 years as an evangelical Christian. Even got amongst them Pentecostals, the health and wealth gospel message. Which I'm going to do a video about the scam of the health and wealth gospel, which is funny. And a lot of Christians actually talk very disparagingly about the health and wealth gospel. It's not biblical. the health and wealth gospel is not the gospel that Jesus was talking about. And to be honest, I got a lot of great content from a lot of Christians who hating on other Christians for believing in the wrong particular interpretation of the Bible that they all share. How they all read it, and they all read it different, and they all get different stuff from it. Fascinating. So let's talk about this for a second here. I don't find it comforting, anymore, because I don't find comfort in falsities or in things that are false. Like if someone said, I put $1 million in your bank. Like that really wouldn't offer me any comfort until I logged into my bank account and saw there'd been $1 million deposit in my bank. Then I would get excited. Then I would know it. And it wouldn't just be, listen, just trust me, I'm going to put $1 million in your account. That really wouldn't, it just really wouldn't. It wouldn't excite me, right? It just wouldn't until it was verifiable and real, okay? So for me personally, I just don't find a belief in God comforting. Even when I think about death, when I think about death and, having formerly been a Christian, I know how I used to think about death. It would be I'd get to see Jesus and I'd get to see all them Bible characters that I thought was so cool and, get to walk and talk with Jesus and see God and, hang out and play around with a lion and, like walking on the streets of gold and walking into my big, huge mansion and just all the stuff that as a Christian, what I used to believe about all that stuff, all that fictitious, made up BS. Like now when I think about it, it'd be like reading any kind of fiction book that's painting some kind of fictional picture. Well, it's not real. So, like, it's just make believe. So it wouldn't excite me. It's an exciting read. It's fun to read that kind of stuff in a book, but it's not real. And so, that's how I feel now. When I think about heaven and hell and, hell doesn't scare me because it's not real. It's just not real. Heaven doesn't excite me because it's just not real. What excites me is doing good and being good now, right here, in this one life that we get that we know of. And I don't claim to know what's after this. I've said that so many times in so many videos. I'm not coming on here like I claim to know what's after this or claim to know, like I've never said, I know there's no God. I've never said that until just there, right then. Because I don't know that. I see no evidence to support that claim. Therefore, I don't believe. That's why I'm an atheist. I don't see the evidence. It's all, like I said in another video that I did earlier, I think a couple videos ago, it's all eyewitness, potentially circumstantial and written, lots of years later, decades later after the fact. I mean, there's just so many holes in all that. But let's talk about this comfort thing. I guess at the time when I was a Christian, it did offer some comfort that everything would be made right in the by and by, things would be made right. And those that died early, they're no longer suffering in this world that we live in, this corrupt world that's run by the devil and all that stuff. You would just justify the heartache or the sadness that you felt here with this hope of something more beautiful in the future. You know, that's all make believe, right? It's just make believe. So there's no evidence to support any of that. So on one hand, I guess you can, whatever's going to make you feel better, you can tell yourself whatever you want to tell yourself. But for me personally, I want to know what's true, what's real, what's testable, provable, repeatable, like things that are really, really true. What's the harm in believing the earth is flat? Well, I guess outside of just being a complete moron, I don't know. I don't understand the whole flat earth debate. What's the point of believing that? What advantage do you have in thinking the earth is flat? And really, when you kind of think about it, it's really more, I think it's kind of more of an ego thing. It's like, I know a secret thing that no one else knows. I know the secret. The government is lying to us, and they're covering up the truth of what is. Why? If the earth was flat, why would the government want to cover that up? Why would NASA, what's the benefit of keeping the truth from us that the earth is flat? What? I mean, I don't have all the scientific knowledge Professor Dave. I couldn't debunk a flat earther. I just couldn't debunk them. I don't know, you just stupid. That's why you believe it. But it's why believe it? And not just why believe it, what benefit do you get except, I guess, money, getting into a little club, a little group. My suspicion is there's a lot of them flat earthers, they know it ain't flat, right? Because the evidence does not at all, not even there's a one piece of evidence that kind of does. No, there's zero evidence to support a flat earth, okay? So those that believe in a flat earth are just living by faith. They just have faith, right? But I like to think and go deeper. What benefit do you have and gain from believing the earth is flat? And then even another thought is, what benefit, or what does the government or NASA or whoever, what benefit do they gain? What is the... I just don't understand that. So for me, it's much the same when it comes to the idea of God, specifically the Bible God, evangelical Christianity. That's, as you know, that's what I talk about on my channel. I don't know other religions. I mean, they're all false. I mean, they're all made up. They're all man-made. But I don't know the ins and outs of those like I do Christianity, because I was in it for so long. And like I said, I was a pastor for a long, long, long time. And, it shocks me to think that people, it brings comfort. Man, I was a pastor a long time, man. I talked to a lot of people, Christian people, who believed in heaven, who believed that their person that passed on, their loved one that passed on, was in heaven. I'm just going to be honest with you. I didn't see it offer all that much hope to them, honestly. The pain of that loss was just as real as it would be for anybody else. Now, there was a slight, possibly, a false sense of, and I'm not a psychologist to be able to really know what the mind tricks are here. I'm sure there's a psychological explanation for this phenomenon. But to believe that your relative is in a better place, well, that would be the only comfort, right? Because to believe that your relative is in the bad place, how could that be anything but just utter torment, right? But here's what I've learned, especially again when I was a pastor. Let me give you a little peek behind the curtain. It really didn't matter how bad someone was, if they's backslidden, or if they was away from the Lord at the time of the death, like they died in a gun shootout, robbing a bank, but their family was like, he knew the Lord. He knew the Lord. He knew in his heart. His actions, sometimes he struggled. He was broken. He had the. It's fascinating. I did a lot of funerals when I was a pastor, and the gymnastics that families would play in with their minds in the belief. Again, there is no heaven, there is no hell. I just believe when you die, you just dead. That's what I believe. I don't know that, but I believe that. Maybe there's something else. I just don't know, and you don't either. So hush. You can believe whatever you want to believe, but you don't know. Well, Timmy, the Bible says in Revelation. Those just words written by somebody. They didn't know either. None of them knew it. And that's true. You just know that's true. They didn't know. They didn't know a lot of stuff. They were ignorant. And that's even the weird part also about the Bible, is that ignorant people wrote it, and it's clear that they were ignorant, but yet the Bible is God-inspired, it's a divine book. Well, then why didn't God fill in some of those ignorant people when they was writing down stuff that was going to be completely just false? Why didn't he say, yo, wait. Don't write that, because that ain't true. I don't spitting on myself. Like, don't write that. That's not true. Whatever. Okay, that's a whole nother video. The comfort thing, though, it's a false comfort. While you're still suffering with the pain of the loss of a loved one, and then, based upon all the criteria that Christians, even though it's supposedly a free gift, and all you have to do is confess with your mouth and believe in your heart the Lord Jesus, and you shall be saved. And right? And of course, then there's all different doctrines and theological perspectives on that, that you can never, nothing can remove you from the love of God. Nothing can separate you from the love of God, right? So the once saved, always saved people. In other words, once you get saved, you's always saved. Even if you turn away from the Lord, you still saved. You just ain't living like it, right? They call that backslidden. And then other groups believe that you can lose your salvation. I was a part of kind of both camps at different times. There were definitely, again, this is all BS, but there's definitely verses that would support the once saved, always saved belief that, for God so loved the world that he sent his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him shall not, perish, and however that goes. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish. Yeah. So, there is this belief that what Jesus did on the cross was a one and done for everybody. I think they call that the gospel of inclusion. My friend, he was an actual friend of mine, Bishop Carlton Pearson, was a good friend of mine, and he's since passed. But he left the evangelical faith and started preaching a message of inclusion, saying that, the work that Jesus did on the cross was a one and done for everybody on planet Earth, past and present and future. Like, it's all covered. It's covered in the blood of Jesus, right? And so it really didn't matter anything else. Like, that was it. But amongst most of the evangelicals, they believe that you can walk away from the Lord, you can live a life of sin and be backslidden, and if Jesus returns, and you ain't going to make it, but that's okay, because you know the truth down in your heart. And so during the 7-year tribulation, don't get that no mark of the beast. You might likely get your head chopped off, but you'll be in heaven, right? I know. if you don't understand this, you weren't taught like I was. Those as evangelicals understand what I be talking about, because you get it. You know what we be preaching back then. So all that to be said, the whole idea of comfort, I just don't find it comforting to believe in things that aren't true, right? It just doesn't comfort me to believe in things that aren't true. I just don't know what else to say about that. But, maybe you do, okay? And seriously, and I mean this genuinely, you do you, boo. If it brings you comfort to believe that after this, there's something, and you believe that your Christian faith is the one true faith, great. I just hope you live like it, like I hope you're a good person, don't judge other people for what they believe. And I personally have some Christian friends like that I have some good Christian friends that don't think that my soul, like me personally, don't think that my soul's in jeopardy because of being an atheist. They don't think that. They just don't believe that. They believe that it's about, they believe that they've just chosen this religion, Christianity, but everybody's on their own journey. They can choose whatever journey, whatever religious practice they want to choose, whatever spiritual practice. They can do whatever they want and just be a good person. But I'm telling you right now, some of my Christian friends that believe that way, they're not hardcore evangelicals. They can't be, because that is completely heretical in the evangelical faith. My friend that I was talking about, Carlton Pearson, he got completely excommunicated from the church. He had a church of, and I went to his church. I was a member. I think they had 10, 15, 20,000 people at his church, I think. It was in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Higher Dimensions. We called it Higher D, is what we called it. And he was a prince of preachers, man. He could sing and preach. The guy was gifted. Anywho, so he lost all that. He lost all that. He lost the church. He lost his ministry. He lost everything. Like, all the evangelicals were like, no way. We don't want anything to do with that Carlton Pearson. He's a heretic. He has lost his marbles. I remember that. And, I never, just me personally, I actually stayed close with him and stayed in touch with him during his journey away from evangelical Christianity into a more spiritual vibe. I'm not sure if he associated, I think he may have associated with like the Unity group, the Universal Church kind of thing. So, whatever. I get it. I do. I really do. I understand how some people find comfort in certain things and telling yourself certain things. Think about it. You can be comforted by lies. It's true, right? I remember when I was young, my family, it was me, my sister, my mom and dad, all of us, we were walking through a park, and we stumbled upon this little baby rabbit, just teeny little rabbit, teeny weeny. Like little, just a teeny little rabbit. And I've always been a big fan of animals. That's why I don't hunt. I couldn't shoot Bambi. You know what I mean? Now, full disclosure, if it came down to it and I was going to die, I could shoot Bambis all day long. You know what I mean? Like, if I had to hunt and fish, I would do them things, and wouldn't bother me at all. Not at all. To kill things so I could survive and feed my family. Anyway, so I found this little rabbit, and it was a little baby rabbit. Barely even, the eyes were just barely even open. It was just little bitty. And I was holding it, and it kind of, it jumped out of my hand. And it jumped out of my hand and landed on the concrete. And it was still moving, but there was blood coming out of his nose. And I never forget this, because my dad swooped down real quick, and he picked it up, and he said, I'm going to go let it go in the field. And so my dad goes running off. We were in the park, and he went running off to a little tree line along where the park was, and he let it go. And literally, I did not find this out until years later. Like, actually not too many years ago, because my folks had forgotten about this story. And I think I was telling my wife was with me, and I think I was telling the story. And, now as an adult, I remember thinking, Dad, did that bunny die and you just told me you let it go? And he just looked at me and he goes, yeah. He goes, I set it down at the tree line and it was gone. And, he had told me a lie to bring me comfort, to bring me some sense of comfort that I hadn't killed a bunny, like accidentally killed the first animal I ever killed in my life. I was young. I don't remember how old I was. I mean, I was maybe 10. I was young. And because he knew it would have broke my heart, man. It would have broke my little precious Timmy heart. It really would. It would have just broke my heart. And now as an adult, I mean, I was like, oh, bummer. That's a bummer. But I mean, it's so many years ago now. Obviously, it doesn't bother me now. He's in a better place. Anyway, so I get the idea. I do understand how for some people telling themselves lies, believing in something that's not true, could potentially bring some kind of comfort and peace. I just can't bridge the gap because again, the Bible says the truth will set you free. Like, it's the truth that sets you free, not a lie. So for me, it's the truth is what's brought the freedom and the comfort to my life as an atheist. It really was, there was like an aha moment as I was deconstructing from my faith, when it finally clicked. And it was just, I remember just feeling this feeling of, oh my goodness, it's not true. Like, it's so clearly not true. Wow, I have been telling myself a lie for so long. And it was my pursuit of truth that brought me to the conclusion, So when I think about even belief and comfort and all those things, I can't say I know it's not true, right? Like I could say, like you wouldn't, I could say, both my legs was amputated. Well, you don't know. You can't see my legs. And you can go do some little research and see pictures of me and see that I have legs, right? But if there were no pictures like that existed, I could have my legs, but I could tell you I don't have no legs. How would you know? Well, just trust me. Take it by faith, right? Right? It's that same idea for me. I finally realized that I was basing the comfort in this belief that had no substance to it. There was no reason to actually believe it outside of maybe the slight benefit of believing something that's not true as true. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm making sense totally. I'm not totally making sense of even my own mind as I'm hearing me say it. But I think you're maybe connecting with it. Cuss and discuss down below. Like, subscribe, do all the stuff, and let me know what you think. And I'm curious, did it bring you comfort when you were a Christian, and now as someone who's deconstructed or deconstructing or atheist or agnostic or whatever you are, how did you handle that? Like, what did you feel? Do you feel like you lost some kind of comfort from believing in those lies? How does that make you feel in believing there is no heaven, there is no hell? Like, I can only tell you what I think. Like, it doesn't, it's the truth, right? Because everything else would just be believing in something that has no evidence for it. So that just doesn't bring me comfort. I just don't receive comfort from believing something without a shred of evidence to support that belief. That doesn't bring me comfort. But like I said, we're all free to believe what we want to believe. And if Christianity brings you some genuine comfort, and you're just not you're not weird about it, all the stuff I make fun of and all that, as long as you don't believe all that, the earth that's 6,000 years old, you know what I mean? Dinosaurs walked with man. As long as you're not believing the stuff that we know isn't true, right? As long as you're Noah's Ark is real. I'm still digging for it. We're gonna find it on the mountain of Ararat. Okay. It's never gonna be found. You know how I know? I know. You're never gonna find Noah's Ark because it doesn't exist. You're not gonna find it. No, but Timmy, they did find it. Oh yeah, I've seen the shows. I should just let you know. I should let you in on this. All the different times that they said they found it, those have been all not true. You know what I mean? They're not true. I'm not. This isn't even my opinion. I mean, I'm just telling you, yeah, they looked into that. It wasn't Noah's Ark, right? Again, no evidence to support the claim. It's the same with the Shroud of Turin. It's a forgery. It was done just back in the 1500s or 1200. It's not real. It's fake. It's fake. Okay. Again, this has been researched and studied, and these things come back around, every so many years. You get a new generation of people that are like, I found the Shroud of Turin and it's real. No, it's not. I'm just sorry. It's just not. Again, that doesn't mean that, doesn't mean Jesus wasn't real, doesn't mean God doesn't exist. I don't believe in it, but it's the Shroud of Turin is fake. Okay, but if you're a Christian, don't let that bother you. It's it's just a fake. Okay, it's just like the statue of Mary that has the tears of blood, but that's fake. Okay? That's fake. That stuff is just Christian weirdness going even weirder. I mean, that's when Christianity just gets so weird. Oh goodness, it just gets so goofy and weird when they start believing a bunch of goofy, weird, I cooked a grilled cheese sandwich and the impression of Jesus' face is on my sandwich. Therefore, the Bible's true, God is real, Jesus died for you, you got to accept him or you're going to burn in hell. My grilled cheese sandwich is testimony to the truth. Crazy. It's crazy. So yeah, I guess if I'm honest, honest about my past experience, yeah, I'm sure there was some kind of a comfort there in thinking that, when my sister passed away, my younger sister died, goodness, and actually this month, about 13 years ago, I think. I'd have to look at my calendar. Yeah, there was comfort in thinking that, she's in a better place now. She's in the loving arms of Jesus. There was, I guess, some kind of comfort there. And now, where do I get my comfort in the death of my sister? I mean, where is she now, Timmy? Well, one, I don't know. I mean, I know where she's buried, but I don't, I don't know what's after this. So I can't tell you. What do you believe, Timmy? Well, I believe she's dead. She's gone, and that's it. And clearly now she isn't suffering, right? She's no more pain, no more trials and tribulations, and no more, right? where does the pain lie? Well, just in my own heart, right? Just in my own I miss her. I wish she was here. I wish that she could be around to see, my grandchild, her, I guess, nephew, like that kind of stuff is what I miss. But again, I know back when I was a pastor, situations where people lost family members, and though there was maybe a slight sense of comfort knowing that, believing in a lie that they were in a better place and that they were still alive in the spirit in some way, they still hurt. They're still missing them. They're still sad. They still wish that they wouldn't have died, So I don't know. I just find no comfort in lies. Bottom line for me, I find comfort in knowing the truth, not believing in something that's what I would say is a false hope. It's I just don't find that comforting. And maybe you do. Again, cuss and discuss down below. I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys. Thanks so much for listening and being a part of my YouTube channel, my extended family, if you will. If you'd like to get in a little closer to the community, I did start a Facebook group called Timmy's Deconstruction Community, and it's a bunch of fun. It's only for those going through the deconstruction process, those who are, of course, deconstructed, those that are agnostic, those that are atheist. It's just, if you're a Christian, you can't get in. How weird would that be anyway? Why would you want to be in that group? But you're not welcome in the groups. I'm just sorry. There's lots of other groups, lots of other Christian groups that you could be a part of on Facebook. So stay out of our group. So anyway, appreciate you. Again, thank you so much. Thank you for every comment. I get to most comments, not every single one. And some of them I have to skim over because they just mean. But I do appreciate your comments, your likes, your subscribes, your shares. And also, if you just love the stuff that I'm doing, I do have Patreon if you'd like to support me, which is a little bit of something to help me do these videos more often. All right, peace, everybody.